And well, good morning to everyone, actually.
Morning.
My name is Chris, for those who didn't know. At Beginner's Mind Zen Center, I hold the position of Tanto, or head of practice. The details, don't worry about it for now. But point is, I really endeavor to support the Sangha by offering instruction and guidance in the forms of a Zen temple and encouraging people to take those up because it's a really good practice. And sometimes that includes a chance to give a talk. I'm still pretty new in giving talks. And if this was a bigger temple, I wouldn't even be on the Dharma seat for another couple years at least. So I guess thank you for your patience and your forbearance in hearing the Dharma talk from someone who's still pretty green. So I fell back into smoking recently. I made it 7 months. I quit starting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. But about halfway through June, I had a really stressful conversation with some people one Monday night, and I spent the whole next day spiraling about it until something snapped, and I bought a pack of cigarettes, and I was right back to it. There's also a chance I may have forgotten to take my meds in the morning. Not exactly sure, but there's a delay between when I would have forgotten and then the day of hell. And so that timing would have worked out. But in any case, I spent that whole Tuesday trapped in a whirling flood of fake conversations and notions about people in my life and the world at large. The conversations, the knowledge of this unreality was present, but it was really easy to ignore. It was very quiet, off in the distance, whereas the notions in my head felt so intense, so real. I was basically powerless to fight them. And this is how it usually goes when I get like this. Knowledge that I am just spiraling does not have the same potency as the mental sensations. Even when I do take my meds, which is pretty much all the time, so don't be too worried, this kind of experience is pretty common for me, albeit much weaker and easier to recognize. Driving in traffic is a really reliable generator of this phenomenon. I often catch myself imagining with certainty what someone is like and what's going through their mind, what I would say to them and what they would say to me if we were in a conversation at the next gas station, say. But really this stuff comes up all the time. Since it can feel so hellish, it put me in mind of the concept of Makyo, which often gets translated roughly as the devil's lair or a cave of demons. In Zen, it can often refer specifically to hallucinations or like illusions of prophetic visions or something like that that come up in meditation sometimes. But I've also read that it applies more generally to like daydreams, like what I and others experience throughout our day, whether we are meditating or not. In Buddhist theory, there are 6 sense inputs: seeing, touching, smelling, tasting, hearing, and thinking, feeling, like emotions and thoughts. I've never had any auditory or visual hallucinations except for a couple mild experience on psychedelic drugs. Sometimes I swear I can smell something that's not there. Sometimes I get like a phantom vibration and I think my phone just got a text message, but these are pretty benign. As for thinking, feeling hallucinations, though, I would say that's pretty frequent, and it's easier for me to fall for it. Makyo are delusions, of course. Since everything is delusion, though, Makyo is like a subset of delusion. It's delusion inside of delusion. It's extra delusory. This is even more pronounced when I'm lost in an imaginary scenario and it's making me feel emotions, and then those emotions reinforce the false sense of realness that I'm getting about the real people involved, but it's just delusion. It's kind of dumb of me to read into these fake scenarios, since they are only loosely based on reality. I have seen again and again that the real people in my life are something totally unknowable. And so it's also disrespectful when I fool myself into thinking I know them, or know what they would say, or what they're thinking based on how these daydreams play themselves out in my imagination. It's not dissimilar to using AI to generate deep fakes showing actual people in embarrassing or ridiculous situations. That's the version of Makyo I try to be especially mindful about, the deep fakes in my daydreams. I think this is pretty common because I came across a meme with the caption, "Me imagining fake scenarios and hurting my own feelings," and it had a ton of likes and reposts. So does anyone remember the show Doug? Maybe more common for millennials? All right, cool, I'm getting some nods. It was a cartoon, main character.
Oh God, that?
Yeah.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, Nickelodeon back in the day, the golden era.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. So he is this kid, and he had an alter ego named Quail Man. And sometimes when it'd be a scene in his imagination as Quail Man, his sort of secret hideout's computer would come in over the loudspeaker with shadowy figure alert, shadowy figure alert, shadowy figure alert. So for a while, when I noticed I was getting lost in a daydream of a fake scenario, I would interrupt myself with imaginary conversation alert. And that usually helped me to snap out of it and remind me to focus on reality. Sometime recently I changed it up after hearing the explanation that these imaginary conversations are the mind practicing and planning as a way to cope with some anxiety. And so I started saying, like, I'd be thinking, I'd like stop, and I'm like, all right, good rehearsal guys, take 10. And I'd actually try and focus on like how much time had passed. Anyways. And this I kind of think is maybe closer to the point, since the fake versions of people in my mind are actually just my mind. Just part of me playing someone else, like putting on a sock puppet. So when I'm fighting with someone in my mind, I'm just fighting with myself. We've all got demons. In the story of Buddha's enlightenment, he is visited by Mara the Tempter. As a story, as lore, it makes for a better narrative that Buddha is visited by some otherworldly entity. But in practice, for us, relating to our demons as if they are some external force is a dead end. We are our demons. We are the source of our delusions. We are the source of our temptations. The call is coming from inside the house, as they say these days. And our preference for, our attachment to these delusions are the source of our suffering. It's more than an attachment or a preference, though. More accurately, it's our habit of mistaking delusions for reality. We're mistaking our mind, our ego, for the external people and situations it is disguising itself as. But it's actually just us. That's good, because that's something we can actually work with. And we are more than these delusions. We're also Buddha. When we practice recognizing what's actually happening, we can get better at letting go. This opens us up more to being curious. It can be hard because when we are caught up in our imaginations, it doesn't feel like imagination. It feels real. Kind of like in Spider-Man, Far From Home. Sorry, this has a spoiler for those who haven't seen the movie. Jake Gyllenhaal's character Mysterio uses these like hologram projecting drones to like trap Spider-Man in an illusion. But at the climax, Spider-Man is able to drop his reactions to the fake environment and trust his spidey sense instead, which leads him to destroy the drones and get back to reality. In Zen, we are learning to trust that we are Buddha, and this attunement to our Buddha nature, which is like our spidey sense, empowers us to let go of the clinging to delusion. I read a great post by a teacher named Judith Ragier in St. Paul, Minnesota. She's in Dining Katagiri's lineage. And she wrote about, the title of the post was Making a Living in the Demons Cave. So she's referring to a koan that Dogen brings up in One Bright Pearl. And so she says, Dogen's interpretation is so wonderfully pro-life. Dogen says our livelihood, our day-to-day work, is indeed always in the demon's cave. The demons aren't actually demons. They are the objects and the stories of our karma that need to be taken care of. They are our life stories, not to be thrown away, but to be taken care of from the vantage point of oneness, which is the black mountain of emptiness. That is the use of understanding.
Chris, would you mind rereading that?
Absolutely. Or I wouldn't mind. You know what I mean? And by the way, the story that she's referring to is, or that Dogen's referring to is one of the teachers says, shoot, all right, I don't remember it well enough to summarize, sorry. I probably should have written that down. Dogen's interpretation is so wonderfully pro-life. Dogen says, our livelihood, our day-to-day work is indeed always in the demon's cave. The demons aren't actually demons. They are the objects and the stories of our karma that need to be taken care of. They are our life stories, not to be thrown away, but to be taken care of from the vantage point of oneness, which is the black mountain of emptiness. That is the use of understanding. So, I think maybe delusions will never stop completely. I think sometimes I get the impression from the stories and the writings of old that if I practice hard enough and for long enough, at some point, all of it will fall away forever and I'll be free from delusions ever happening again. But also from reading other teachings and from hearing talks from teachers I've met, I get the sense that that sort of once and gone forever is not actually a real thing. I don't know. Point is, maybe they will go away at some point. Maybe they're always with me. But regardless, I think that we should do more. We should aim to do more than just drop them. And this is directly riffing on what Judith wrote. We should also practice taking care of the delusions, like a parent takes care of a child. One of my favorite Jane quotes is, "Delusions will just be, and I'm a delusion too, so we'll get along together." As I practice compassion toward these delusions, I am practicing compassion to myself. As I deepen this compassion towards myself, I am deepening my compassion for others and the whole world. And in this way, I am cultivating my Buddha nature and bringing less suffering upon myself and the other beings that my life brings me into contact with. This is the way. I just wanted to close with a small excerpt from Opening the Hand of Thought by Kosho Uchiyama. Highly recommend that book. Very, very good. So he writes, "A present-day person aspiring to find a true way of life will meet all the problems of modern society. Human progress is by no means the same as the advancement of natural science, nor does it follow the path of the development of material civilization. Human progress lies in each and every human being becoming an adult. Becoming an adult is nothing other than each of us becoming a bodhisattva, where we see every encounter as our child and discover our joy and ardor in life through looking after each of our children. When this becomes a world of bodhisattva adults in which we watch over one another and care for and help each other, then humanity will have come of age and we may rightly say we have progressed." Thank you for your kind attention. The floor is open for questions or sharing thoughts of your own. Feel free to do it popcorn style. If you feel more comfortable raising your hand, I'll try and watch out and call on people.
I have a question.
Boom.
Yes.
You mentioned delusion inside a delusion, but what's the difference between delusion inside of delusion and enlightenment inside of enlightenment?
Well, the smart-ass answer that came to mind is like, one's delusion, one's enlightenment. But I think it was a sincere question, so I should give a sincere answer. I think one big difference is that it can be helpful to use concepts to frame discussions of delusion. It's like the boat that can take us to the other shore. I often kind of look at these concepts and frameworks, just sort of frame discussions of this, and think like, oh, that's just a framework, it's just a whatever. But just because I'm going to abandon the boat when I reach the other shore doesn't mean I shouldn't get in the boat before crossing over to the other shore. So using these conceptual frameworks is a form of delusion. Everything's delusion. And enlightenment within enlightenment, I actually just don't know.
Thank you for your thoughtful answer, though I should have probably said, is there a difference between them?
Oh, is there a difference between delusion within delusion and enlightenment within enlightenment? Well, yes, in part because, as Dogen says in Genjo Koan, a Buddha is someone who has had a great realization about delusion. And a sentient being, or like just a regular person, is someone who is deluded about realization.
So what's the one thing that makes them different?
Honestly, if I tried to answer that, that would just be delusion.
Excuse me, Spencer and Chris, from a practical standpoint, how would what you're saying be practical?
How would what we've been saying just now be practical?
Just now, because as I'm listening to it, I'm thinking, okay, so how do I apply this to my practice to bring about a life that is going to allow me to better address the needs of others and myself?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. But I think that's a fair question. And I think with any sort of, teaching that gets is sort of bandied about in Zen discussions, the logical next step always is, okay, so what do I do with this? How does this apply to our real human lives? Knowing our human life and my identity as a human as delusion is, really interesting, but unless we can take that somewhere and integrate that with the delusion, then it's really just kind of an interesting little bit of decoration for our mind. It's a nice little thought exercise. And maybe that's what you were sort of getting at, that making peace with delusion as delusion and bringing about some sort of unification between realization and delusion, and appreciating it as delusion, and appreciating realization or the perception of realization as a delusion of realization, even though there's kind of actual realization there, maybe. That integration is really like, I almost say like where we hope to end up, but there's no ending up actually. It's just like, it's the thing to do to carry ourselves forward and experience myriad things. No, that wasn't what I was going to say. No, I was totally going to say that. Integrating form is form, emptiness is emptiness, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, and then the fifth thing, which is in attachment, weeds spread and aversion, blossoms fall. That integration is, I think, the bulk of the spiritual path of Buddhist study.
I think my question will dovetail nicely into what Matt's question
Let me, the answer, Matt, is only your mind makes it different. And that's how you integrate this into your life. If you understand that the difference between delusion inside delusion and enlightenment inside enlightenment is your choice, then you could do anything. You become enlightened right now. You could turn on this word.
What if I were to choose to just ignore what you just talked about? And I don't mean this in a sarcastic sense. I mean it in a very practical way, because it sounds sarcastic. It's not. If I were just to ignore it because I don't, perhaps it's one of those things that will make sense later, but if I were just to ignore it and just go about sitting and taking my practice from the cushion, or in my case from my recliner, out into washing dishes, brushing teeth, having a conversation without even carrying that in my subconscious, I don't know how would there be a difference?
I would recommend doing that. Suzuki Roshi was always like, all right, thank you for your kind attention. Now forget everything I've just said. If you're just washing dishes and you're not worrying about delusion within delusion or enlightenment within enlightenment, I'd say, like, yeah, do that. That's the game, man. This is the way.
I would say that if you ignored it, you would be doing exactly what I prescribed here.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it sort of like a tag on the conversation we were just
Yes.
having? Okay, cool. Yeah, shoot.
I would just say to Matt, I would ask questions like that to Peter, and he would say, he would just tell me to polish the tile, and to return to a practice.
I'm sorry, who's talking?
Ian,
Ian. Hi, Ian.
did you hear what I said?
You said more zazen.
Okay, so Tiffany, could you ask your question?
You had mentioned compassion towards oneself, bringing about compassion towards others, and then bringing about this thing that you were sort of, I think this was a full synopsis of your talk. And sort of to Matt's question, like, how best can we enable that compassion through practice, like metta, or if you could say more about that, I would really appreciate it.
I think that I can't say what the best way is, because there's really no different versions to compare one another to. I think that just endeavoring in this earnestly, sincerely, with curiosity, with joy, is the best way.
Sure.
Yeah, as long as you're engaging these questions wholeheartedly and sincerely, and sort of finding that balancing point between, like listening and paying some attention to something you read or something some Dharma teacher said, but then actually like focusing on your real life and just sort of like walking on the path instead of just studying it on a map. As long as you actually are putting one foot in front of the other, that is the best way, because there's no better way. I wanna give Maya a chance to ask her question, and then we'll go to Mike.
I have a question.
I thought I saw you raise your hand.
No, I was saying I was late.
Oh,
to moving this.
got it, no worries. Oh, yeah.
Question would be real quick.
Okay.
From your talk, it reminded me of something I heard, and I don't remember who said it, but that in order to become aware, you need delusion, because it is the challenge that you face in order to open yourself up. Delusion actually has a part of the path that we take to become aware. Would that be something that would be part of your talk, in the sense that we all have delusions and we have to take care of them, but they're also teachers at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. It's often said that the human realm is the most auspicious realm to be born into because our struggles give us opportunity to wake up. Yeah, please. One of my favorite Jane interactions was she was talking about the struggle to like wake up and et cetera, et cetera. And I was a lot younger and thought I was super clever. And there's, of course, this phrase, the struggle is real. Pretty sure you all have heard it. So I raise my hand and I say, so Jane, would you say that the struggle is real? And she was like, the struggle is the only real. Success is meaningless. I was like, okay, thank you. Suzuki Roshi has a quote that goes something to, we should be thankful for our problems, or we should be thankful for our troubles, or something like that. And I think that pretty much is getting to the same thing you're getting at. Yeah.
One more tag, but not a question. Thanks for the talk, great talk, and thinking about causing suffering to myself, and how since I've been practicing, I've been able to sit back as the observer and try to get ahead of causing myself the suffering. And I equate it to, when I do that, it's like a ripple effect, where it's like throwing a pebble in a pond. Like, that's my suffering, but it ripples out. Like, I'll yell at my dad on the phone for something I didn't need anyway, didn't come in the mail on time. Or not smile at someone on the sidewalk because I was in the mood. So just thinking about what you were saying, like stepping back in my practice, and what Jane said one time in a Dharma talk that I really love is that when you sit to do Zazen, you're not just sitting with yourself, you have to sit with everyone in your life on that day. And sometimes it feels like a ton of people are on my cushion.
Yeah.
But if I can focus back to, the here and now, and realize that, like the Tibetans say, they say, instead of like, I'm angry, I'm scared, they say anger is here, fear is here. And so I've been able to step back and, suffering will never go away, it's always going to arise, but limiting it and limiting the ripple effect that it has on the world that I'm putting out, that's what I'm trying to do at least. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Great talk.
A friend shared a quote, and I don't remember which teacher said it, but the quote was, we're not trying to get rid of suffering, we're trying to change our relationship to it. Yes, thank you. Mike, get that charcoal started. We're gonna need it. Yeah, lots of incense in the full moon ceremony. I think one perspective that practicing Zen has put me in is the sort of interbeing of all these various things: suffering, me, Buddha, emptiness, and how the differentiation is essentially just a mental concept. So by practicing compassion towards any of it, I'm practicing compassion towards all of it. It's not where I was going to go with that, but I forgot where I was actually going with it. So I'll just invoke RuPaul's quote.
Oh yeah, oh I know where this is going.
It's
see that coming.
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love anyone else? There's a lot of Dharma wisdom out there.
Sounds like a bodhisattva for the world.
That's what, yeah, absolutely. So,
So you did, in another point, say that you've given up the idea that you could immediately be free from suffering, that enlightenment and it all goes away, or something like that, right?
yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
So, and I think you've been doing this long enough that you're not attaining anything, but
Thank you, by the way.
But, you know, as there are infinite gradations of suffering and delusion, could you see that there are infinite gradations of enlightenment and that your suffering might not go away, but slowly, like erosion, might be dissipated?
I think so. I think there's something to the notion that this is a practice, and because if there were no fruits of practice, no one would do this for like decades. And it feels so awkward, but yes, I think you can sort of like get better at like recognizing delusion for what it is, and that there's no like one final enlightenment. Rather, you're making enlightenment a practice. You're making it a habit. You're checking in with and sort of opening up as a conduit for Buddha nature more often, I guess. That's really, really awkwardly put, but yeah, Dogen's whole thing was practice enlightenment. It's not like a one and done thing where you get to some point and then it goes away forever and never comes back. I think that might be a great motivator for some people. I think that was sort of I think that was like the cosmological hegemony. No, what am I? What's the? I think that's what people how people treated the spiritual path for a while, and I just it doesn't necessarily seem all that helpful for me in the 21st century with the Soto Zen as transmitted by Shunryu Suzuki and San Francisco Zen Center, all that. Dogen specifically, again, practice enlightenment. I think that was a huge turning point in the development of Mahayana Zen Buddhism. I definitely lost the thread just now.
I guess, do you suffer less now?
I think so. Yeah. It's like when I first started Zen. Over the course of like a year, I noticed like a major leap, and then ever since then, it's just been kind of like more like, you know, clarifying butter. Like it gets a little bit, and I can scrape it off, but it's like a half-life. It's always going to keep. And that there's that notion that I sometimes get, but I don't want to cling to that, because sometimes I'm reminded of the notion that progress isn't linear, and that all the various phases, if you could say, of the Oxfording pictures, or any of the sort of steps on a path of progress, we actually sort of like go between them at various points, and finding myself in a world of hurt that's completely self-inflicted is not an indicator of like regression on some path, and now I've got to make this progress again. It's just our lives, our Zen practice is infinitely big. It actually encompasses everything. And I don't think it's necessarily helpful to narrow my concept of myself and my practice to notions of wickets and this, that, and the other. But I think I will say, yes, I do feel that practicing Zen these many years has resulted in benefits. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to be a priest, because Zen practice is awesome. I found it really helpful in my life. And if someone wants to try it out, I want to help them.
When you sit and you're fully concentrated and there's that single point samadhi, is there any suffering?
No.
You suffer less?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the bottom of it.
Finally! Nope, there is no bottom. How's the charcoal? Is it coming along?
We should move on.
All right, sweet.
Great.
Joel, did you want to say anything? Because I was Justin, no, can you hear me? Okay, Drew, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm thinking to where I've been in that state you mentioned at the beginning of something that really upsets me and maybe I forgot to take my meds and what happens then and what's helpful. And I was just thinking, what arose is not fighting it, like just being there. All these, painful, crazy thoughts are twirling around or raging around like a hurricane. And that's what's happening right now.
Mm.
And then just remember your breath if you can. Remember, this is just what's happening right now. And if you can't, that's cool. It's whatever it is just what it is. And I think there's a sense of not fighting it, not being afraid of it, being perfectly okay that this is what's happening right now. Perfectly okay with it. And like everything else, it's going to change. So that's, I think, what I would say, how I could put what helps me. And I come back, I've mentioned the story of Bernie Glassman, whom I saw on one occasion. Now, Bernie is the only one to whom Izumi Roshi gave full transmission and all that. He's a really big Zen, big shot, and to put it mildly. And he just was a total mess.
Mm.
His second wife had just died. He was a total mess. And he was in front of a whole bunch of us, including many teachers and many students. And he just was sort of, I'm Bernie and I'm a total mess. And for me, that was tremendously helpful at that time, given what I was going through. Because I felt I was a mess and there was some big problem about that.
Mm.
But he said, I'm a total mess. And he just shared that with all these teachers, many of them his students, many of them he had transmitted to. He said, I'm a total mess. And that's what's happening right now. And as Mel would say, and that's okay. That's what's happening right now. I'm Bernie and I'm a total mess. And that's okay. Okay, that's what arises for me.
I don't even want to try to add on to that.
Okay.
Mr. Matt.
Yeah, I love what you just said, Joel. And the only thing I want to do is just supplement it with a physical experience that's akin to what you went through, Chris, that day that precipitated your going back to smoking. For anyone who gets migraine headaches, they, especially bad ones, that you can, and if you're a practitioner, you can get into this trap of trying to practice your way out of it, and what you'll end up doing is trying this mode of thinking or breathing and that mode of thinking or breathing, trying this, trying that, trying this, trying that, until you realize you're helpless. You're helpless. You're utterly helpless in the midst of all of this pain, and you give up. And at that point, the headache starts to resolve because you're no longer contributing to it with all of this fear, this effort, this anxiety. All of that effort goes into just making it so much worse with all of that tension. And when you're going through a mental storm of the kind that you were describing, it's very similar. And you sit there and you try to think your way out of it. And the truth is, it's not only mental, but it's a physical phenomenon that you're going through. And your body is going through hell at the same time that your mind is. And the more that you try to think your way out of it, the worse it gets, until hopefully you reach a point of exhaustion where you just realize you're helpless and let go. And if you realize that that's a possibility, that it is in fact a possibility, that letting go is a possibility, and that you can get there, you cannot force it. You kind of have to suffer your way to it, which is really what our practice, in a sense, I think can be about. We have to suffer our way, in a sense, to helplessness, where we just stop trying, and then magic happens.
Yeah. Find your breath. Surrender to what's happening in the present moment. And try to eschew preferring yourself in a calmer state.
And the harder you try, the worse it will get. And that's okay. I don't mean to make anyone despair about this. Only, I'm so grateful that I get migraine headaches. They've been maybe the best teacher I've had, because they just put such a powerful magnifier on the process. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's the end of effort.
I saw another meme where there's like this squirrel. I don't know why it was a squirrel, but the caption was, "Relax, nothing's in control," or "Nothing's under control." Yeah, that surrender is what sort of cues us into relaxing our delusion that we can control things, we can control things that we cannot, and also relaxing our assumption that by being however we are, we're somehow deficient, defective, broken, and we're not. As Joel was saying about Bernie Glassman, it's just the way things are right now. Buddhism doesn't even teach suffering is bad. It's just suffering. And there's a way out, moment after moment. And it doesn't involve trying to fight it. Yeah, lay down the weapons, drop the armor. Yeah, I was talking, yeah, so, yeah, I think this is a good place to, oh, just kidding, sorry, Mark.
I just wanted to piggyback on everything saying, sometimes things happen and we get hurt. We get emotionally hurt. And I think it comes down to just giving ourselves the space to process that. Even if it means just crying your eyes out for an hour or something, without any intellectualizing,
Mm-hmm.
just giving ourselves that space.
100%. So now let's give ourselves space to repent our ancient twisted karma and take the bodhisattva vows again. May